that way the reverb gets out of the way.
Can I point out what you just did real quick?
Yes.
That's something that I always try to reaffirm. Notice he wanted to bring the vocals up. What did he do?
Load everything else down.
Yeah, because everything's sitting on top of that.
Okay.
And the next thing I'm going to do is add a comp dynamic.
If you go down to the audio units, probably our best
You got some
compressors
fancy
are
stuff in
670 clone, which
Oh, you
is
got a Fairchild?
go to IK, and then drop down to the very bottom line.
670.
clone.
The 670, I use it a lot on guitars. It can almost be a little too much on vocals
It can,
sometimes.
yeah. There's also there's another
Turn it off, compare it, see what it's doing. Back on. There it is. Double click. You get a lot more makeup gain with the vocal that way too, but then I got to make sure my little red light's not going off. I mean, occasionally you're going to have some of those in the mix, and it's so close to perfect that you're just going to let them go. It's just going to be that way because you don't want to redo everything. But especially early in the game, you want to not have those going, even if you don't hear it because it's doing something. But then again, you know, there are no rules. It's just good technique to not have stuff distorting. It'll all add up to something that might be harsh later. That's a great place to check the vocals because she's doing that da, 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 da. And I just wanted to hit on those a little bit to bring those down so they don't jump through so far. I still want that emotion that she's doing, and I don't want to compress the whole thing heavily, but I just want to get that peak stuff down so I can bring the whole body of her voice up more. And I feel like we just got it, and I just screwed it up. How do I move that?
You just grab the bottom piece.
This piece?
You have to go at the very top.
Oh, whoa.
there it is.
I should just put it up there. Sorry, his info.
You can put a cycle on that last part if you want to.
That's how a lot of engineers will set. That's sort of an average thing. 2 dB, 3 dB, just to peak control they call it. You know, not
2 or 3 dB gain reduction.
yeah, not a whole lot. If you do too much, it gets to be really extreme, and that's another effect that might work really good. I mean, a lot of the stuff goes out with rap vocals, you're going to have to compress more, so all the rules don't apply, or you're going to compress more to get that, because the beats are so fat, and then you're trying to get that vocal on top, so you got to sometimes compress more. And we'll over-compress just for fun. Once you over-compress, it's an effect, and it's a legitimate effect. Even just putting it on there without the, excuse me, the compression affecting, it still imparts a really cool characteristic. And a lot of people, Bruce Swedien, who does Michael Jackson and stuff, he just puts the compressors on to impart a coloration and doesn't even use them so much for the gain reduction. So it's good to know that they can be used that way, especially something like the 670.
Or people doing that with the Butte a lot too.
Pultec's great for shaving lows off, which I really love. I use the Pultec mostly to cut lows.
What you gonna do? It's happening again, watching you.
If I go that far,
You might just break again, up to the faces.
what the this is in gain reduction meter mode, so it's showing us the number of dB that we're compressing, and at this amount, which is pretty heavy, it's still turning it down. You gotta imagine a little dwarf turning down the volume for you, little guy. But he hasn't brought the vocal back up before the end of the phrase, so it came down on the peak, and then she's singing the quieter thing because we run out of breath, and that part's still turned down. So it's too much compression. It's not coming back fast enough. So you just want to make sure when it's taking the peak down, it's coming back up to where you want it. So I would use less of it. So that's somewhat over-compressed. This thing doesn't over-compress too much. Some other EQs will really over-compress it. A lot of times what guys will do on the way in too is kind of what you guys did, where you can run a compressor that's really slow attack, slow release, so the transients aren't being compromised, and it's just bringing the whole thing down a dB or two and giving more to that body. And then after that, you can run a limiter. If you know the guy's got a real punchy voice, and you set the limiter to 10 to 1, which is limiting. It's a compressor set to 10 to 1 or more. And then have a fast attack and a fast release. So one compressor's bringing up the body, and another one's sort of doing damage control on the top end. So you can have your levels really hot. But again, if you don't have a really good compressor for the way in, like the Focusrite or something of that level, I would just do it all on the back end. I won't throw a DBX 166 on the front end unless I want to use it as an effect. If I don't have a really kick-ass compressor, like a distressor or something, I'll probably do it all on the back end anyway.
So what you're saying, Dale, is run 2 preamps on the front end, basically, and
one preamp, and then after the preamp, you go to the compressor, which may be incorporated into the box, into that unit. And then if you have a limiter, that would be another compressor afterwards. So you'd have preamp, line level out to the compressor, line level out to the AD. And that's sort of like if you could do whatever, you know, if money is no object, if you've got all the gear at hand. That's a good way to get vocals in there. Most of the time I have Summits, which are a lot like the Avalon, and I use just 1 or 2 dB of compression on the way in as sort of damage control, and then I do my peak control later. But if I get somebody who's really hot, I will sometimes put the distressor on there and use it as peak control.
okay.
But that's sort of the ideal world if you're in a studio and you've got all this stuff at your hand. You probably, if you're like me, I bought one nice preamp, and I had one nice preamp for about 4 years before I could afford my second nice preamp. So you work with that. So the preamp's most important, then the compressor if you can get it, then the limiter. But anyway, this is doing a great job here on the back end. I feel like she's really sitting on top of the mix pretty good.
Game away, breaking up.
We'll just start going through the drums and stuff and see what we got there. So I'm a drummer. Where's my pan? Right here? Yeah. So I pan my overheads out left and right real wide.
Usually pan your overheads all the way out?
A lot of times I go all the way, or if it's just too much, then not. I'm not a fan of tom-toms flying across the room, left to right. I think that's just totally phony. But, so your overhead may not be good in all the way out. But some of these guys, Chris or Algae, they really feel like one source, one speaker, or both speakers identically. And that's a real hard aesthetic to follow that I don't follow. But because of hearing stuff like that, I'll start with hard band overhead and see if it works. And if not, then I'll bring them in. You're going to get, because we have these other components in the drums, it's all kind of mixing together. So even if those are way out, it may not sound like everyone's way out. For instance, I could put the toms at 30 center and 30 to prevent that problem. So let's look at the kick. Is compressor made?
Oh no, you did like that.
Okay. I'm just gonna leave it bypass, or yeah, I'm gonna leave it bypass. Limiter, channel EQ. That's what I'm most concerned about. I like the bottom that's happening. It seems a little loose. I want some definition because the kick is kind of juxtaposed to the snare. Kind of that whole call and response thing, basically, between those two components. Most people, a lot of stuff to listen to on earbuds, it's not going to have any of that subcomponent. We want that subcomponent in there for when people are have systems with subs at home, in the car, the club. But I'm going to add some high end too, just to give the kick something that's audible in the top end as well. And so basically the kick is two components. It's a subcomponent and it's a high mid component, usually around 25 to 45, 2.5 to 4.5. You want to have some of that in there. They call it the click. You want to have some click in your kick, and it really helps to give it. Oh, we haven't even heard it yet because I'm in bypass. Where it's kind of affecting the cymbal, so the mic wasn't in the drum. That's okay though. Usually it can be pretty narrow. And if that dirt really bothered us, we could gate it later. So this is what we had. And then this is with the it's disregard what it's doing to the cymbals, but isn't that weird? We're not changing the low end, but it sounds like punchier.
Yeah.
So, and this is more extreme than I normally go, but just to kind of show you.
It stands out a lot more.
Let's hear it in the mix.
Actually feel it a little bit more. Yeah.
That's a cool bump too because